The Ralph Emery Show this week is happy to present the talents of Gene Watson. Gene hasn't been with us in a couple of years. I'm happy to have him back. And of course, the song that's coming up, Love in the Hot Afternoon, was the song that brought Gene Watson to the attention of all America. And we had a brand new star.
No, I don't know if I'd have said that.
Golly, when was Love in the Hot Afternoon?
We recorded the song in early '74, and it was released in late '74, originally on a little label called Resco Records, and then Capitol immediately picked it up and signed me to a contract with Capitol.
Whose idea was it to put that little figure in there where the singers go filet gumbo?
Well, I think it was just more or less off the tops of everybody's head. You know, I'm not an artist that takes a lot of time pre-planning or anything like that. I'm a firm believer in going in the studio and you know, see what comes out, and it just seemed to fall into place, and it came out, and it was one of those things that just boomed out in front of everybody. Even they didn't know, you know, a lot of the people didn't know what that even meant. They couldn't understand because they didn't know what filet gumbo was. And
what is filet gumbo?
Well, it's a type of soup from Louisiana, and I have everybody, even still, I have people ask me, you know, what's that word you say, what does this mean, and all like that.
And I would imagine particularly people in the North.
Right.
Who've never tasted crawfish bisque or filet gumbo, don't know what that stuff is, but it's Cajun cooking.
It is.
I always wondered what filet gumbo had to do with Love in the Hot Afternoon.
Well, I think it had something to do with the setting of the song.
I
I'm
see.
Not sure.
Gene, what was the follow-up record to Love in the Hot Afternoon?
A song called Where Love Begins.
Where does love begin?
Well, who knows that? Now, I'll answer that with a question. Do you know where love begins?
Well, I guess it's when you, after you've met someone, you begin to notice that when they're not around, you miss them.
I guess that'll do. You're not going to get an argument out of me.
How's Miss MADD?
She's just doing great.
That's your love down in Texas?
That's my dear wife for 23 years.
When did you first notice that you loved MADD?
Oh, Lord, sometimes I wonder.
How long did you date before you got married?
We more or less grew up together, Ralph.
Really?
Yeah, we're from the same town, and we knew each other ever since childhood. In fact, we were children when we got married. She was 15 and I was 17. And it just seemed like every time I'd have a fight with one of my other girlfriends, I'd, you know, go tell her about it, you know. I guess maybe she was a better listener, but I don't really know.
Did you have a hard time talking her parents into letting her marry you since she was only 15?
Well, her father, of course, was deceased, and her mother thinks that, and I thank the Lord for this, she thinks that I'm one of the greatest people in the world.
Well, that helps.
Yeah, and no, there was no problems with it. I think everybody, you know, kind of wondered, well, this ought to last about a month and then blow apart, you know, but it didn't go out that way. I mean, we've kind of raised each other, you might say.
How many children do you have?
I've got a daughter, 22, and I've got a son, 19.
Are they married?
My daughter is. Just got married here about a month ago.
Would you have let her get married at 15?
Well, I don't know. I don't know about that now, you know.
Shoe on the other foot?
Yeah, it is. It's sort of one of those deals like you pay for your raising, you know what I mean? And I don't know.
I noticed you sort of backed off on that. Gene Watson is a man who told us earlier that he never intended to be a full-time country music entertainer. He was happy to be a weekend warrior and work in the body shop all week, working on cars. Gene, when you finally decided to give up the garage and work on the cars, what made you decide?
I think the main thing, Ralph, was, well, it stunned me. I was completely overwhelmed, and I thought to myself, and believe me, I've done a lot of thinking about it. I thought, well, you know, here is an opportunity I have that so many people have worked years for, you know, with this in mind. And here, I didn't necessarily have it as one of my goals, and it's happened to me, and I decided to give it everything I had because I knew it was a golden opportunity, but I knew that it wouldn't take me too awful long to know whether it would work or not.
All right, did Love in the Hot Afternoon cause you to make the move?
That's the song that caused me to make the move.
All right, now, did you have much money?
Oh, I didn't have any money. I had an 8-to-5 job. I was assistant body shop manager of Lincoln Mercury dealership in Houston.
How much money were you making?
I think about at the time I gave it up, I think I was making about $1,200 a month.
All right. Now, when you decide to go out on the road, that's expensive. You got to pay motel bills.
Yes, and I know
travel.
And I know that a lot of people that have going on the road in mind, this is something that never crosses their mind because it never crossed my mind. I never thought about the expense involved. But you can't just jump out there in the old car that you run back and forth to work in. If you have in mind to put a band together, you don't have in mind all those salaries. You don't have in mind that you're going to be playing places. Well, say you've got one hit record. What are you going to do for the rest of that night for songs to sing? You got to sing other people's songs. Mm-hmm. And every time they say, well, you're going to be somewhere, they're going to say, Gene who? They don't nobody know who you are from one record.
Yeah, they know the song.
They know that song. And boy, there's so many. Maybe it's a hard word to say, but there's so many pitfalls starting out in this business that you don't think about when you first go into it. But I'll guarantee you there's a lot of pennies to be raked and scraped and handled in the right direction before you go on the road as an entertainer.
Did you ever borrow money in order to launch your career?
Yeah, me and the bank, we had, a few deals going.
So then you worked initially without a band, right?
Right. I worked for the first 2 years without a band, and I put my band together slowly but surely.
What, one or two pieces
right,
at a time?
One or two pieces here and one or two pieces there, and actually I would add to my band before I could really afford it. There's a lot of nights that I've worked that the band would make more than I did. Really, that's the truth.
And I believe union rules say that you have to pay for their hotel accommodations, you have to pay for their travel, and you pay them, and then you have to pay them a fee or a salary.
You're supposed to pay,
play.
Yeah, a union scale. And of course, when you're first starting out, there's a lot of ways that you can get around this because a lot of times if your band members are devoted and think that much of you, they'll work deals with you. I mean, you can pay them like a minimum salary and all like that. But still, when you're first starting out, you don't jump out there and start booking for no $5,000 a night.
Gene Watson, we've been talking about making the transition from a part-time country singer to full-time country singer and the expense involved. I'm just kind of curious, and you don't have to tell me if you don't want to. But today, you finally put it all together. You are recognizable. People know who Gene Watson is. You have a band, you have a bus. But what do you have to spend a week to stay out there and keep all that together? You have any idea?
I couldn't put a figure on it.
Or a year.
I imagine Larry could tell you better than I could. Would you estimate it, Larry?
In a year's time.
In a year's time.
$400,000.
$400,000 is what he says. That's almost $500,000.
Well, that'll give you some kind of idea.
That's just in expenses.
And the reason I referred to Larry was, not too long ago, Larry was my band leader, road manager, front man, bass man, the whole works. He kept books on the road, and so that should be a pretty accurate figure.
Can you make a living spending $400,000 trying to make a living?
Ralph, people come up and say, how does it feel to have it made? What do you mean have it made? There's a lot of money goes through my hands. But you'd be surprised. Miss Maddie's the only one in my household that gets a check, And if you think that it's easy to get rich in this business, check with her. She can enlighten you.
Then you have to spend money on publicity. Yeah, those 8x10s aren't cheap.
That's some more of the things you don't think about when you go into this business full time.
Do you sell T-shirts and that sort of thing, too?
We sell caps, T-shirts, albums.
And you hope they'll sell. You got to buy them. You got to buy them first.
I guarantee you got to have something to buy them with. And a lot of times you go over to the guy that you get them from and hope he'll give you 30 days on them,
And also a deal.
Really, that's telling it like it is.
Funny title. Another funny title. Cowboys Don't Get Lucky All the Time was a funny song. I thought this was one of the funniest titles I have ever heard. You're out there doing what I'm here doing without. Where'd you get this song?
That song was written by a boy that used to play lead guitar for me in my band by the name of Bo Roberts. And Alan Frizzell was a co-writer on it, too. Or they were co-writers on the song. But he played this song first for me. We were getting ready to do a job out at Opryland. And he's one of them kind anyway. And he jumped up on the bus, said, "You got to hear this song, man." And he played it, and I told him right then I'd cut it, and we got robbed on the song. It went to #2 in the nation, and it should have been a #1 song.
What was #1? What kept you out?
Your Love Is on the Fault Line.
By Crystal Gayle.
Right.
Well, #2 ain't bad, Gene. Let's go for it. Gene, you a George Jones fan? Or is that a dumb question?
I think everybody is. But we just got through with a tour with George.
Did
and
you?
in fact, in Bristol, Tennessee, when I leave Nashville, we're going right straight to Bristol to play a show with George. And I must say that he's fantastic. He's better than I've ever heard him. I just said it. He's fantastic. I think the world of him. And believe it or not, Ralph, this song that we're about to play, I got the guys on stage. We got set up early one day to do a show, and we rehearsed this song because I was getting ready to record it. And it wasn't 2 days later, and George had, I heard that he was coming out with it.
It's an old Leon Payne song.
It really is a fantastic song.
Old country song called "You Still Got a Place in My Heart." By the way, Gene, have you been booked down in George's new country music park in Texas?
Yes, I have. I was one of the earlier acts to play there when they were just getting rolling, before they closed after the first season. It was a fantastic date. I think it's a great place to play.
Where is it exactly?
I guess the closest place, it's in Woodville, Texas is where it's at, but I guess the closest place it would be to recognizable to most people who travel would be Nacogdoches. Right off of Highway 59, US 59.
Is this an outdoor situation?
Yes, it is, and it's a fine facility. Of course, the stage is covered and everything. They have outdoor seating and all like that, so naturally it's seasonal. But it's a fantastic place to play. You can take the kids and everything and just let them have a good time and all like that and really enjoy yourself.
How many people will it hold?
Oh, Lord.
Or seating, I mean.
I'd be afraid to say. Something that large, it's hard to say. I'd say he could probably seat, of course, they have the bench-type seats set up outdoors, and I'd be safe in saying he could seat probably 10,000, 15,000 if he wanted to.
Yeah,
and, of course, all the standing room in the world.
Is this a multi-purpose park, and is there anything else for them to do while they're there?
I think they've got, joy rides for the kids. They have all types of refreshments and things like that. So it's a thing that you can go out and spend the weekend at, and have a good time.
What is the name of the park?
George Jones Country, I believe.
And it's a new enterprise. It's George's second country music park. He used to own one in Florida, because I worked that one. And that's back in the days when he was married to Tammy Wynette. Of course, George has been married now to a very pretty lady named Nancy Jones, and she's been very good for him.
I think she has.
This occurred last night on my Nashville Now television show, which I did with Ricky Skaggs and Bill Monroe, and the subject of George Jones came up because Bill Monroe loves George Jones, and he's playing some dates with him this year. And we've been talking about it, and I said to Bill, "You love possum?" He said, "No." I said, "No, I mean George Jones." And he cracked everybody up. I wasn't asking Bill Monroe if he loved to eat possum.
I imagine I'd have done the same thing.
Ricky said, "There'll be no pressed possum from Mr. Monroe." Gene Watson got hooked up at one time with a Canadian songwriter, help me, Gene, by the name of...
Dallas Harms.
And he wrote several good songs for you, didn't he?
He did. Dallas is a fantastic writer. He wrote this next song we're about to play, and I asked him, I'm not too much on follow-up songs or anything like that, but I asked him, could he write me a follow-up song for this, which it wasn't released as a single, but it was still a fantastic song.
What was that?
It was a song called Mama Sold Roses. That was the follow-up song.
Is that in one of your albums?
That's in one of the albums, yes.
How do you envision Paper Rosie? Is she like a bag lady in New York that we hear about? Is she just a poor lady on the street?
Well, I'm from Texas, you know, and I've played those places, you know, where you dodge the beer bottles and all like that. And there's not as much of it now as there used to be, but used to you would have ladies come in, you know, with a display of different flowers and all like that and sell to the people, you know, in the places where I'd be working. This is things that I've seen myself.
You mean in nightclubs?
Right. And that's how I vision this story. As a lady coming in, you know, I respect a person that'll make a living if there's a living out there to be made, and a lot of people made their living this way by selling roses and flowers and things like that.
Well, the ones that you have known, were they elderly or?
Usually they were.
And it was their only way to survive, I suppose, that and maybe a little pension or a little Social Security?
Right, and I've seen it, Ralph, where like an elderly lady would come in and sell the roses, and she might have like a couple of daughters or such with her, you know, and they would come in a place, they wouldn't irritate you, they wouldn't get on your nerves, you know, they'd just pass through, and if you wanted to buy a flower, well, fine. And
the club owner didn't object?
Usually not.
Well, I'm with you. I am with you. I can appreciate anybody that tries to survive and tries to hustle, that sort of thing.
I respect anybody like that.
Let's talk about the song Drinking My Way Back Home, and if you don't mind, I'd like to put it all on the table, okay?
Just put it on the table.
This song has been a problem for you, hasn't it?
The first song that I've ever released, it was a problem for me, Ralph, and I hate to say it, but because there was no offense intended in any way with this song. I recorded the song because I thought it was a good song for the beat, whatever, you know, however a person wanted to take it. But undoubtedly, some folks took it the wrong way.
All right, what developed after the song was released? And let me tell you, this song went all the way to number 10 in the nation.
It did. It was a really hot song. It was moving fast. In fact, it was one of our faster moving records that we released. Some people try to say that it was because it was released too close to the holidays. I don't believe that.
When was it released?
It was released in, I believe, the early part of December.
That's not the part of the controversy I'm talking about.
Okay, I was going to get to that. This was the part that I think some people might have passed the buck on, because there was an organization, of course, known by a lot of people, by the Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, that didn't feel that the song was the right kind of song to be played on the air. So they got to...
I believe the organization is called MADD.
Right. And they got to giving the radio stations trouble, and of course, as a result, in a way forcing them to pull the record from the playlist.
Okay. They objected because they felt this promoted...
drinking and driving.
Okay. Now I would like to have your response to that.
It's kind of touch and go, Ralph. I'm not a drinker. I don't drink myself. And the record does not say that I was drinking and driving. It does say that I was drinking and drinking my way back home. But, you know, I guess that any way you interpret it can go any way you want it to go. But anyway, they took it like I was jumping in a car and going to drink all the way back home, you know, and I really didn't think about that when I recorded the song.
All right, I think everybody should have their side.
I do too.
And
I'm on their side. I don't condone drinking and driving. I really don't. It's a terrible thing, and like I say, I didn't have that in mind when I recorded the song. I'm sorry a lot of people took it that way, and more than that, I'm sorry that it killed my record at 10, because I think it could very possibly have been a #1 song.
Gene Watson, we have played Paper Rosie in this show, and now we're going to play another giant record, Farewell Party. I get the impression that this is your most popular song.
It is by far. In fact, it's the band name now, and I've never gotten any more requests for any single song since I've been in the business than this. And I've also never heard as many people talk about how it makes them cry and how sad it makes them I guess misery loves company goes along with that because everybody, even though it makes them cry, they want to hear the song.
Is this your natural show closer when you're working?
It is. That's our final song of the night.
And I imagine when you roll into this, people just come unglued.
They know from the first note on the steel guitar what the song is. I guess it's the song I'm most known for.
Now, after you sing this, do you leave the stage,
Well,
or do you encore?
I usually...
See, this song would cause them to applaud enough that they would bring you back. Do you come back?
Yes, I do. Anytime where the show permits. A lot of times we work a lot of big auditoriums, civic centers and such, where time is such a major factor that we do not pre-plan an encore. And I've heard of people that do, so they'll chop their show a little bit early, providing time for an encore. We don't. I give them every minute I can, as long as I can, as hard as I can go, and when I get through with Farewell Party, I make my exit. Of course, if they do bring me back, it tickles me, and I must say I've had more standing ovations from Farewell Party than any song I've ever tried to even sing.
I am a fan of Gene Watson. I like Love in the Hot Afternoon. I like Paper Rosie. I love Farewell Party. In this particular show, I happen to be playing 3 of my favorite songs. This is the 3rd one. Cowboys Don't Get Lucky All the Time.
I call that the most truthful song I ever recorded.
The first time you laid this one on me was on an old show called Pop Goes the Country. And when you first rolled into it, I thought, hey, this is going to be a dirty song. I did. I thought, uh-oh, we're in trouble. It turned out to be one of the cutest songs I have ever heard in my life.
I can't imagine, Ralph, how a Canadian could write a song that would fit so many people as well as that song did.
Particularly about Cowboys.
Yeah. That how guys get together and like to talk this, that, and the other and everything. And man, and mostly,
you mean
I guess,
brag about their conquest of women.
I guess maybe us Texans are known best for this, but I often wondered how a Canadian could hit so many Texans right in the face with this song.
Hey, I think men are the same all over the world.
I found out that they basically are.
Okay, now I'm just following your schedule. You took the bus out of Ohio. Where were you in Ohio?
Missouri City.
Don't think I knew they had one. Missouri City, Ohio.
No, Jefferson City.
Jefferson City, Ohio?
Missouri City's down close to where I live. Yeah, Jefferson City.
You sure you weren't in Jefferson City, Missouri?
Missouri. Is that where I was? Okay.
Where were you? In Ohio?
No, I was in Jefferson City, Missouri. You can edit this however you want to,
No, I'm not going to edit a thing.
I know it. No, it was Jefferson City, Ohio. I'm sorry. Missouri.
Well, which was it?
If I wasn't confused, I am. It was Jefferson City, Missouri.
Okay. Shall I turn around and ask your manager?
No, that's where it was.
That's funny because, and I can understand this. You do so many shows, and they all begin to run together.
They do.
You know how many television shows I do?
Really?
And people will say, well, the day before yesterday, who was on with you? And I'll have to stop and think, well, who was on with me?
Well, I'll tell you, Ralph, it's kind of different with me. I don't usually even look at an itinerary. They usually make plane reservations for me, and I usually fly into the first job of the tour and then ride the bus the rest of the way. But even when I do ride the bus, I'm usually back there in my room or not watching where I'm going. And I don't know from one job to the next where I'm going to be, usually. Just, wherever they take me, that's where I'm at. I do know we're leaving here. I got to catch a 1 o'clock plane, fly to Bristol, and play tonight.
Bristol, Tennessee?
Right.
Before you became a star in country music, and I know we've talked about this. I know how you feel about that word star, okay? But did you go to other people's shows?
Not that much, because even back then, Ralph, I was usually working, as a weekend warrior, you know what I mean? Playing nightclubs here and there, first one thing and another, and I didn't have a chance to see that many of them. The ones I could see, I usually tried to go to.
Well, you'd work in the body shop all week?
During the day, and then play usually every weekend.
That was, so you were working 7 days a week, weren't you?
Yeah.
Was it always in the back of your mind to leave the garage and eventually pursue country music full time?
It was never in my mind. Being an entertainer never crossed my mind as far as a career. Because I always figured singing was something I was going to be doing anyway. And believe it or not, I loved, to go out on weekends and play and entertain the people. And I didn't make that much money. You know yourself that you didn't make that much money playing in these small clubs and all like that. But, a lot of places you got your beer and you got to have a good time, and there's nothing that I enjoy any more than singing.
So what was a hobby became a full-time profession.
Boy, it did.